Part 1. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 1. Blue Star. Lonely City. This is a classroom full of science fiction atmosphere, with light blue magnets all around, silver light flowing between the gaps, and mysterious runes printed on it. A huge projector is hung above the podium. An old professor in his 50s or 60s points at the projector with one hand and holds an iron rod in the other, telling the history excitedly. Since the explosion of the solar system 100 years ago, the war between humans and aliens has never stopped. One side occupies the territory, and the other side invades the territory. Even under your feet now, I don't know how many human bones are buried. The projector plays a war video. The sky collapses, the earth cracks, blood flows like a river, humans and the motley aliens fight each other, someone chops a mountain with a sword, and a monster eats a piece of planetary debris in one bite. The gloomy sky, the red earth, and the people who die one after another. It's really scary. The students who watched it were terrified and trembling. The old professor smiled with satisfaction when he saw the students. If I don't scare you, my class will be in vain. By the window, Yejing was lying on the table, with confusion on his face, confusion in his eyes, and a trace of fear. Am I not sleeping at home? How come I have traveled through time when I woke up? The images in his mind kept emerging, impacting his own memory. This world is called Blue Star, a parallel world of the Earth, with the same ecological species, the same sun, and the same 9 planets. It's just that this solar system is a little more unlucky than the original one. Hit by an arrow. 100 years ago, on the day of the eternal wonder, 9 stars in a row, a ray of light beyond the scope of human cognition shot out from the distant universe, directly piercing the 9 planets like a candied hawse. And then there was nothing else. The ray of light passed through the 9 planets and finally shot into the sun. After shattering half of the sun, it turned into countless fragments and drifted in the universe. The 9 planets became tens of thousands of continental fragments floating in the universe. The blue planet, which no longer belongs to the planet, has also been invaded by the cosmic spirit. The world has changed, and all living things have come to life. Humans have entered a stage of rapid development in another way that deviates from technology and cultivates themselves. In the past 100 years, humans have set foot on the fragments of the 9 planets, collected resources, strengthened themselves, and gradually formed the world's main profession: practitioner. What the hell is this? Yejing shuddered all over. The 9 planets have all exploded, half of the sun has exploded, and countless humans have been killed and injured. Why did I come here? To add another meal for the alien race? Moreover, where is the golden finger required for crossing? The solar system has been blown up. It is not something that a mortal like me can afford. Not to say that I am invincible in the world, at least I have to have the power to protect myself. Do you want me to go into the alien world naked? Fight against high martial arts with my physical body? Isn't this too bad? Is this something a human can do? Yejing lay on the table and scratched his head. If he could go back by jumping off the building, he would be ready now. In the classroom, the old professor was projecting a video while scanning the students. At a glance, he saw Yejing lying on the table. The table made of fine iron is so cold, how can you lie on it? Do you want to be happy? Yejing, get up and answer the question. Yejing stood up with a confused look on his face. What's wrong? He had been sorting out the memories in his mind and had not listened to the professor's class at all. The old professor raised his white eyebrows, and it was obvious that he did not listen to the class seriously. He asked, "Do you think humans like war?" Yejing shook his head, "No." As a 5 good youth in the new era, he believes in the core values of socialism, loves peace, refuses war, and is afraid of war. The old professor asked again, "Why?" Yejing pondered, "How could I know why?" He looked at the old professor and tried, "At the beginning of man, is nature good?" Bang! With a loud bang, the old professor smashed the iron rod in his hand on the podium with a dark face. "Speak properly." The podium made of fine iron is very hard, and the old professor's stick went down without leaving any trace. "What do you want a young man who has been doing everything for him since he was a child to say?" Just when Yejing was embarrassed and didn't know what to say, and when the old professor's face became more and more gloomy, a voice came from Yejing's mind. Passive furnace restarted successfully. Passive furnace binding completed. Host, please extract initial skills. A series of voices made Yejing stunned for a moment, and then tears filled his eyes. "Damn, why did you come just now? Don't you know that I was very panicked without the golden finger?" In his consciousness space, a huge furnace inexplicably appeared. There were countless scars engraved on the furnace body. Those were traces of time, as if it didn't know how long it had existed. However, this was not something Yejing could understand now. There was no time to think about it. He directly recited the word extract in his heart. Extracting passive. Extracting completed, get initial passive, voice of trust. Voice of trust, when speaking, there is a 10% chance of gaining the trust of the other party, making the listener believe it, lasting for 30 seconds. Life-saving straw. Yejing was very excited. This came too timely. It was just that the triggering probability was a bit low. If it was 10%, it would take a while longer. He didn't have time to think about it. He directly exited the consciousness space and said seriously, "Teacher. It didn't trigger." "Ahem. It didn't trigger." "What? It didn't trigger?" It was not triggered." The old professor said impatiently, "Don't waste time. Answer quickly. If you can't answer, I'll slap you on the hand. It's such a simple thing. Is the chance of 10% so low?" A few drops of cold sweat left on Yejing's forehead. He had a picture of the old professor slapping him on the hand in his memory. The iron rod in his hand was made of fine iron. The boy in the memory had his palm slapped and bloody, and he screamed. Although he was healed the next day after applying some medicine, the pain was not something that people like me could bear. Yejing took a deep breath. I trigger the sound of trust, which lasts for 30 seconds. It's finally here. The huge rock that was originally pressing on his heart was also put down, and the whole person relaxed. He replied with confidence, "The essence of war is death. Once a war breaks out, then the next thing is death. No matter who it is, the law enforcement team or the cultivator, they all have relatives and friends. Once they die, then only sadness is left. Death is inevitable for everyone, but war is. If each race is a little more tolerant and understanding, I believe that the most extreme behavior of war is completely unnecessary. Thank you. Noble. Generous. Unrestrained." Yejing's voice seemed to have been modified by magic, clean and pure, like a breeze passing through everyone's brain, deeply engraved in their minds. The whole class was silent, stunned. Is this still the bad student in our class? This. How can this be said so high-sounding? The answer is obviously not like this, but why does it feel so reasonable? A few seconds later, thunderous applause rang out in the class. Is this still the same Yejing? Why do I feel his voice is so penetrating? He said a lot, I didn't quite understand, but I felt he said it well. The poor student is giving us chicken soup, drink it up. The old professor waved his hand with a complicated expression, motioning Yejing to sit down. He didn't know what was going on. Yejing's answer was obviously different from what he thought, but he just couldn't refute it. Could this be a way of understanding? Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 2. When the class calmed down, The old professor coughed twice and turned the student's attention to him. Student Yejing said it very well, but there are also mistakes. The essence of war is plunder. The land area of the broken blue star is very small, and the resources are not enough for all mankind. If you want to get more cultivation resources, you need to invade. You need war. In addition to the blue star, we now have a large planet fragment, more than a dozen medium-sized planet fragments and hundreds of small planet fragments. The resources on these planet fragments are just enough. With the development of cultivation, our demand for resources will increase. Only by continuing to plunder can we maintain development. Do you understand? I understand. Although that's what he said, few students took it seriously. This city is called Lonely City, a veritable lonely city. After the blue star was broken, it split into 16 pieces of land, some large and some small, and Lonely City is the smallest piece of land fragment at the edge of the blue star. Lonely City is far from the center of the continent, and there are no planetary fragments to open up. Resources are scarce, and cultivation is difficult. It is close to the alien race on Mars, and small-scale wars often occur. It is dangerous and poor. It is October now, with unified examinations in November and global unified examinations in December. Generally, after the unified examinations every year, most students will choose colleges outside of Lonely City and never return. Over time, under the cycle, the population of the entire Lonely City is getting smaller and smaller, and the number of practitioners is getting smaller and smaller. It is estimated that within a few decades, this smallest piece of land will be abandoned. After the old professor finished a passionate and magnificent speech, he became excited and hammered the podium with a fine iron stick. Tomorrow we will have a wave of attack numerical tests, and you can also use the Wind Tiger Fist I taught you last week. Have a good rest tonight. Those who fail will be beaten 10 sticks each. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned his head and pointed at Yejing again. You don't need it. You are the only one in the class who didn't enter the country. Just get beaten tomorrow. Yejing was confused. What's the situation? I haven't even started yet, and I'm going to die. And what is the Wind Tiger Fist? He nudged his desk mate with his elbow and asked, Wang Hao, what is Wind Tiger Fist? Wang Hao looked Yejing up and down and said jokingly, I taught it last week, but it has nothing to do with you. You haven't even entered the country, so what kind of boxing skills are you talking about? The old professor has said it directly, just get beaten tomorrow. Boxing skills? Active skills. Yejing thought silently in his heart, and after putting his consciousness into the passive furnace, he saw a line of small words engraved below the furnace. Unable to use and learn all active skills, including but not limited to active attack skills, active auxiliary skills, and active life skills. Yejing's mouth twitched slightly. Sorry, old professor, I have no chance in this life. He was also very regretful in his heart. It seems that I have no chance to learn the kind of skills that can freeze the 19 continents with one sword and destroy the stars with one punch. After school, Yejing left the teaching building and looked up at the sky. In the sky, there was a thin, light blue curtain covering the entire Lonely City. Is that the sky curtain? It's so spectacular, Yejing sighed slightly. I really don't know how this huge thing was made. I heard that this protective cover covering the entire city consumes countless spirit stones every day, but it can't be turned on, because it's not certain when the surrounding aliens will attack the Lonely City, and then everything will be too late. And the sun in this world is not complete. The sun hanging in the sky is half bright and half dark. When it rotates to light, the sky is bright, and when it rotates to darkness, the sky is dark. When I returned home, I saw a burly, dark-skinned middle-aged man walking out of the kitchen. The middle-aged man was wearing a blue apron around his waist, holding 2 dishes in his hands, and walked into the living room with a limp. Yejing looked at his father's image speechlessly. The tough guy plus the apron made him feel awkward every time he looked at it, and it was full of disobedience. But he couldn't say anything. In this world, his mother died after giving birth to him. His father cooked for him for 18 years, and he always wore this kind of apron. It was estimated that he couldn't change it. At the dinner table, the father and son chatted daily. Dad sighed, "Old son downstairs is traveling with his wife again. If he wants to travel, he has to tell me. Aren't you afraid that I will go with him?" Yejing chuckled, "Uncle Son got married at the age of 40. It's normal for him to show off. He even pulled me to teach me about love experience 2 days ago. I just can't get angry. Every time he plays cards, he has to take his wife out for a walk. Can we play together?" Dad felt itchy when he thought of the way old son showed off his wife when playing cards. "Pretending," Yejing said nonchalantly, "if you want, you can find another one. I don't mind." He didn't have any ideas anyway. It didn't matter if he found a stepmother and gave him another little brother. Anyway, there were only these rags at home, and he couldn't share much with him. The old man looked hesitant, as if he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Finally, he shook his head and said, "Let's talk about it later, let's talk about it later." After dinner, Yejing was about to go back to the house when he saw his father carrying a lunchbox and going out. He asked, "Going out so late at night?" The old man smiled awkwardly and said, "Your Aunt Hua's daughter next door went to her classmate's house. I'll go see if she has eaten. I'll be back tomorrow morning." After that, he left the house without waiting for Yejing to reply. "Yejing, dot." He showed helplessness on his face. "Is it necessary to come back tomorrow morning to see if others have eaten? Is it really okay to use this excuse every time? Aunt Hua next door is a widow who lives with her daughter and has lived next door for 10 years. But I don't know when she actually got together with my father. In his memory, in the past year, my father would go there almost every week. What embarrassed him most was that Aunt Hua's daughter was his classmate. Classmates in the same class since junior high school. This was very embarrassing. Recently, her daughter also noticed something. Every time she looked at Yejing, her eyes were not right, as if she was looking at a pervert. My father's problem is not my problem. What's the point of you looking at me like this? Back in the room, it was late at night, and there were dots of light flickering in the sky. They were not stars, but pieces of planetary fragments. I have experienced so many things today. Finally, I have time to study the passive furnace quietly. Lying on the bed, Yejing stretched and put his consciousness on the passive furnace. The entire passive furnace stayed in his consciousness space, rotating slowly like a sphere. Below the passive furnace, there are several square images, 2 of which are bright, and the rest are all in a gray state. Lottery, use energy to extract passive skills. Synthesis, use materials and there is a chance to synthesize items. Please collect it, I dare not ask for others, nor dare to ask for them. Waste some time, please read on. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 3. Even if I travel through time, I can't change my fate of drawing cards. Yejing sighed, feeling so tired. On Earth, I kept drawing cards and SSRS. Now in a parallel world, I have to use the cheat code to draw skills. Is the lottery a universal word in all planes? Is the lottery a universal way to make money in all planes? What a word created by God. Yejing suppressed his resentment towards the lottery and opened the lottery interface. There was no other way. Synthesis required raw materials. Now there was nothing around, so he could only try lottery first. Besides, it was obvious that lottery was the core function of the cheat code. Even if it cost him his life, he had to use it. There was a large roulette wheel in the lottery interface, with countless stripes engraved on it, and the colors of the stripes were also divided into several types. White, blank, 70%. Green, primary passive, 30%. Blue, intermediate passive, 10%. Red, advanced passive, 5%. Gold, extraordinary passive, 1%. The probability is so low. Yejing cursed inwardly, it's really a rip-off. Even for the primary passive, there is only a 30% chance. If you can't draw it, wouldn't it be a waste of energy? And 1-to-1. 100 spirit stones can only be drawn once. You have to know that his current total assets are only 650 spirit stones. After leaving spare spirit stones, he can only draw 5 times. 30% probability, what if all 5 times are empty, wouldn't it be a loss? In his mind, the probability of primary skills is so low, let alone other skills, that's all delusion. Let's try it first. Yejing sighed, resisting the pain in his heart, and took out 500 spirit stones from the storage bracelet, leaving only 150, and exchanged the rest for energy. Looking at the spirit stones disappearing bit by bit in front of him, his heart was bleeding. If no skills are extracted, I will smash your broken furnace. Extracting skills, blank. First time. Yejing took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and continued. Extracting skills, blank. Second time. Continue. Extracting skills, blank. What the hell? Yejing roared angrily and punched the bed. 300 spirit stones were wasted. Is this going to make people live? What kind of broken golden finger, are you trying to cheat me out of money? What can 300 spirit stones do? Buy 3 cultivation potions, buy a fine iron weapon, and buy a boat ticket to another city. Now. All gone. My heart aches, it's a heart-wrenching pain. Keep going. There's no turning back now, the spirit stones have been exchanged for energy, and I have to draw. Give it to Dad. Drawing completed, green. Passive, double attack. Huh. When Yejing heard the different voice, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, and collapsed on the bed. If it doesn't come out, I'll be mad. However, when the skill came out, my mood changed instantly. No wonder so many people like to spend their lives to draw cards. This is really exciting. Without thinking too much, Yejing directly focused on the skill. Double attack, there is a 10% chance of causing double damage when attacking, LV1, 0/100. Double damage. It feels a bit low. My current attack power is not much, even if it is doubled, it's the same. Yejing frowned and thought, to be honest, such a skill is useless for him now. When he becomes stronger, the effect of double attack can be reflected. For example, his current attack power is 10, and the double attack is only 20. But what if his attack power is 10,000? That time the double attack will increase the power by a lot. Thinking about it this way, he suddenly felt that 400 spirit stones were still quite cost-effective. The one behind is proficiency, right? It only takes 100 times to upgrade from level 1 to level 2, maybe I can upgrade to level 2 today. Do it right away. With motivation, Yejing became excited, with endless strength all over his body. He looked at the table made of ordinary iron, and without hesitation, he punched it down. Bang! It hurts. Yejing took a breath of cold air, and his fist was red. Am I stupid? So hard? From heavy punches to light punches, the speed has also increased a lot after hitting for a long time, even the rhythm has come out. Boom 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 boom. Boom 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 boom. As time went by, Yejing changed his postures, such as lying, lying prone, sitting, kneeling, leaning, etc., and his proficiency in double attack was also growing rapidly. I don't know how long it took, the stars moved, the moon in the sky was hanging high, and a ray of moonlight shone into the room. Double attack, there is a 10% chance of causing double damage when attacking, LV1, 99/100. Duan. A loud bang. A big hole was broken in the table, and more than a dozen cracks on the surface spread to the surroundings, covering the entire iron table in a blink of an eye, and then collapsed to the ground. Upgraded. Yejing looked at the debris on the ground in a daze. Before he could react, an inexplicable energy flowed into his body along the surface of his body. At this moment, the space in the room solidified, as if it was occupied by some kind of gas. What is this? Spiritual energy entering the body? I am going to break through and become a practitioner. Yejing's face changed, and then he was ecstatic. He didn't have time to think about it. He just followed the method learned in class, sat cross-legged, closed his eyes slightly, and after a few seconds, the sound of even breathing echoed in the room, accompanied by a flat heartbeat. This was entering the calm heart, calm breath, steady spirit practice mode. After entering the state of concentration, the spiritual energy in the air washed over his body like waves, over and over again, and the dirt and impurities in the body were all expelled from the body with the influx of spiritual energy, and the whole body felt much more relaxed. Half an hour later, when his body was filled with spiritual energy, Yejing opened his eyes, a beam of light suddenly shot out, then dissipated, he exhaled a breath of turbid air, twisted his body, and a crackling sound came from his bones. Finally entered the state. Yejing jumped up excitedly. There is a huge difference between practitioners and ordinary people in this world. Whether it is status or dignity, everything depends on strength. And ordinary people, they have no strength. Since the universe's spiritual energy invaded the blue planet 100 years ago, everything changed. Humans absorbed spiritual energy to resist and gradually explored the path of cultivation. Until now, a unified realm of cultivation has been stabilized. Transformation realm, underground palace realm, destiny realm, extraordinary realm, three disasters realm, each realm is divided into 10 levels. Transformation realm transforms the spirit body. Underground palace realm cultivates the spirit. Destiny realm is the fusion of human and God. Extraordinary realm is a domain in itself. It has only been 100 years since the spiritual energy was revived, and the road of human cultivation has just begun. After 100 years of development, so far, the destiny realm is the backbone, the extraordinary is the top powerhouse, and the three disasters realm can be counted on one hand in the entire blue star. Of course, in the hearts of high-level practitioners, they all understand one thing. Breaking the three disasters is just the starting point. Because the light that shot through the entire solar system was so shocking. Even the peak of the three disasters is less than 1/10,000th. One update first, and next week it will be changed to 2 updates if the contract is signed. I dare not ask for anything else. Please collect it. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 4. Yejing, who finally stepped into the practice, felt like he was floating. He hummed a little tune, and after washing all the stains on his body, he lay happily on the bed. He was just about to fall asleep when something suddenly came to his mind. That's right. Double hit. Upgraded. Double hit, the attack has a 10% chance of causing triple damage, LV2, 0/1000. The proficiency has increased tenfold. Yejing smiled bitterly. This is not as simple as when he was at level 1. Before he entered the country, he triggered a triple attack and broke an iron table. Now that he has entered the country, wouldn't he be able to open a hole in the house? There is nothing at home that can increase his proficiency. Breaking a table is okay, but if it was broken at home, wouldn't Dad be able to break it for him? Forget it, let's go to sleep. He was sleeping, sleeping, sleeping. Before he could become conscious, a sudden knock on the door woke him up. He opened his eyes and looked at the time. It was 1:30 in the morning. Who is that late at night? Yejing was confused. Dad? Impossible. Dad always comes back the next morning. Could it be that you are not feeling well today? With a trace of vigilance, he walked towards the door lightly and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the figure behind the door. After opening the door, a slim girl appeared in front of him. The girl is petite and cute, with delicate facial features on her pretty little face, flawless white skin with a hint of red, and glossy black hair hanging loosely over her shoulders. A pair of clear and translucent eyes show different eye colors. The left eye is light red like a beautiful maple leaf, and the right eye is light blue like an empty sky. These are pure heterochromatic pupils. Dewa, why are you knocking on my door so late at night? Yejing asked curiously. I told you 10,000 times not to call me Dewa. Call me Huayu, Huayu said angrily. Ever since she named her puppy Hua, Yejing has been calling her Dewa. It's so annoying. I know, Dewa. Yejing nodded, saying that he understood, but had no intention of changing it. Dewa was so kind. As kind as Hua. Huayu did not correct Yejing's words anymore, but grabbed Yejing's collar and pushed him against the wall. Her bright pupils reflected a fierce look and said fiercely, hurry up and put you down, Dad is calling me away from my house. Her face was red and her heart was beating hard. Her original plan was to stay at a friend's house, but her friend's father suddenly came home in the middle of the night. He told her with a serious face that it might not be safe tonight and asked her to go home quickly. My friend's father was from the Gukhan law enforcement team. He suddenly came home during the night shift. When he saw that something had happened, she panicked and ran home in a hurry. Who knows? As soon as she arrived at the door of her house, she heard an extremely embarrassing voice coming from the house. Fortunately, she was a practitioner and had strong hearing. Otherwise, she would have entered the house rashly and seen something she shouldn't have seen. I don't have the face to see anyone. She stood at the door not knowing what to do. After hesitating for a moment, she knocked on Yejing's door. Yejing's face froze and he glanced at the house next door, feeling extremely embarrassed. Dad, you are out of luck. What should I do? Usually, it doesn't matter if it's a bit obscure or ambiguous. Once you notice it, you'll notice it. Today, my daughter blocked the door of my house. You are shameless, but Aunt Hua is even more shameless. Yejing laughed awkwardly and pointed behind him. How about you go to my house for a while? Huayu snorted coldly, pushed Yejing away, and walked in. At this time, she definitely couldn't go back to her home, so it was better to pretend not to know. After Yejing saw Huayu go in, he breathed a sigh of relief. He still felt a little aggrieved. It's my father's debt. Why are you so scornful of me? In the living room, Yejing brought Huayu a glass of water and asked, aren't you at your classmate's house? Why did you come back suddenly? Huayu looked at Yejing with contempt and said angrily, how did you know that I was at my classmate's house? Haha, your whole family is really amazing. You know exactly when I am at home and when I am not at home. Hee hee. Yejing smiled awkwardly, I really can't accept what you are saying. Can I say that your mother has rebelled? Huayu didn't expect Yejing to say anything. She took a sip of water and said with a solemn look on her pretty face, my friend's father is from the law enforcement team. He told me that it might not be safe tonight and asked me to go home quickly. Yejing frowned, not very safe? Could it be that the alien race from Mars is coming again? The isolated city is on the edge of Blue Star, close to a small fragment of Mars. The fragment of Mars has been occupied by local aliens and established the city of Nanhuo City. The city owner of Southern Fire City is violent and warlike, and often invades the isolated city. Small-scale wars between the two forces continue. There are a few days every month that are spent in preparation time. Hua Yu shook her head. It seems more than that. If it was just a small-scale war, my friend's father should not be at home, but on the front line outside the sky. The sky curtain consumes a lot of resources and is the last line of defense for the lonely city. As long as the canopy remains, the battlefield will always be outside the city. Ye Jing said, then don't sleep tonight and practice meditation. If something happens in the city, we can take care of each other. I'll take care of you. Hua Yu was halfway through her words when her round eyes suddenly widened. She looked Ye Jing up and down, and said in surprise, you actually entered the country. Ye Jing looked at Hua Yu's surprised expression and couldn't help but smile complacently. It's just so. I suppressed my spiritual energy for 7 or 8 years, and finally couldn't suppress it anymore, so I just went with the flow. Ha. Hua Yu rolled her eyes, looking disdainful, not taking Ye Jing seriously. If Ye Jing's talent is ordinary, then she is an elite. With excellent qualifications and extraordinary talents, she broke through the realm and became a practitioner a few months ago. When entering the metamorphosis realm, the physique changes, and the acquired water and fire are one body. Among the practitioners of the 5 elements system, the dual system practitioners are thousands of miles and 5 days. This is not a 1+1 increase, but a 100 times 100 increase. A scum like Ye Jing who entered the country just before the unified test in the 3rd year of high school can't show off in front of her. Ye Jing's mouth twitched, looking down on me so much. You may not know how terrible a traverser with a golden finger is. When my passive skills reach 100, I will make you kneel down in seconds with one sword. But at this time, he could only YY. In the early stage, he could only develop slowly and not waste time. Everything would be fine if he survived. Drawing skills requires energy, and energy requires spirit stones. He didn't have spirit stones. When he thought of spirit stones, his heart began to ache. Where could he get spirit stones? Hua Yu saw Ye Jing's painful expression and asked, what's wrong with you? Ye Jing turned his head and said, can you lend me some spirit stones? Hua Yu grinned, he. On the sofa in the living room, the two sat on one side and entered a state of meditation. As time passed, the two who were still on guard gradually relaxed, and nothing happened. Of course, nothing happened only in the city. Outside the city, the sky fell. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin Ji Bayet. Chapter 5. Outside Nanjing City, at an unknown time, Skyfire City invaded Gu City on a large scale. It has invaded a place less than 10 miles away from the isolated city. Hundreds of practitioners from the Gukhan Law Enforcement Department are confronting an army of thousands of fire demons. Standing at the front of the Law Enforcement Department was a middle-aged man with a tall and majestic figure, holding a cold light spear, and staring expressionlessly at the fire demon army not far ahead. He is the top officer of the entire Lonely City Law Enforcement Department. He is also one of the strongest people in the isolated city, Anand Star. He entered the human realm at the age of 15, the underground palace realm at the age of 20, the destiny realm at the age of 30, and now, at the age of 43, he has become a super strong man at the 7th level of the destiny realm. People like him who are expected to become extraordinary before the age of 50, whether they are in the imperial city or large groups, will rush to win over them and give them important positions. And he has never left Gukhan from beginning to end. He has never left since he was a child. Always guarding this remote city. And Nangxing's face was gloomy, his whole body exuded a dangerous aura, and his dark eyes were filled with blood. He looked ahead. There were thousands of fire demons there. Even at the front of the army, there were two strong men who made him feel bad. He looked around him. There were hundreds of law enforcement officers there. The older law enforcement officers had determination on their faces, while the young law enforcement officers did not take a step back even though their bodies were shaking. He looked behind him, where there was a brightly lit city and ordinary people living in peace. Finally, he turned his gaze back to the fire demon army in front of him, took a deep breath, exhaled it again, and uttered two words gently but firmly. Go ahead. Yes. At dawn, the sound of the door opening woke them up. Outside the door, Dad sneaked in and saw Yejing and Huayu on the sofa. Dad, dot. Yejing, dot. Flower language, dot. The three of them stared at each other, but no one said anything. At this moment, there was an air of embarrassment in the air. After looking at each other for a few seconds, Dad was still thick-skinned and pretended that nothing happened. He coughed twice and smiled at Huayu. Huayu will come and ask Yejing to go to school in the morning. Huayu didn't pay attention to her father, but glared at him fiercely, ducked out of the door, and closed the door with a bang. When Huayu's figure disappeared from sight, his father breathed a sigh of relief. In just a moment, his back was soaked. He turned his head and asked Yejing, "Why is Dawa here? Isn't she going? Are your classmates home?" Yejing shrugged his shoulders. "I came back due to an unexpected accident at midnight yesterday." Dad was dissatisfied and said, "Why don't you send me a message to tell me?" Yejing sneered, "I am a cultivator, why can't I hear you?" "Dad, you are really good at it. Your daughter caught you having an affair, and you still have the nerve to say hello to her." "Dad, don't talk nonsense. What is an affair? Can a mutually agreeable thing be called an affair? Besides, I'm thick-skinned. What should I be afraid of?" Yejing chuckled and did not answer. "You are thick-skinned but Aunt Hua is thin-skinned. I see you haven't had a chance these past few months." At the dinner table, after Yejing finished eating, he hesitated for a moment and finally said what was in his heart, "Dad, you and Aunt Hua should go out in the future. It was so embarrassing to meet you now." Dad waved his hand, "Let's wait until you and Hua graduate. Let's talk after graduation." After saying that, the father went back to the room, leaving Yejing standing there stunned. What's going on? What does this sentence mean? Marry again after graduation? You two have remarried, what should I do? After leaving the house, Yejing just wanted to walk towards the school, but suddenly stopped, looked at the sky in the south of the city, frowned slightly, and murmured, "There is something wrong with the color of the sky." The sky in the south of the city seemed to be lit with fire. It was dark red, and the entire sky was covered with a layer of red mist. Even the clouds were like this. Could it be said that there are also fire clouds in this world? But this time is not right either. Yejing didn't think much about it, just thinking it was because of the weather. In the school training ground, the old professor held a stick in one hand and pointed at the training machine in front of the students with the other hand, and said calmly, "Stand in line, 1 punch per person. Those with an attack index of more than 100 stand on the left, and those with an attack index of less than 100 stand on the right. This training machine is 2 feet high and 2 feet wide. The outside is covered with spiritual silver that can withstand huge impacts. The central impact point is made of 5th level alien animal fur. Not only can it withstand attacks, but it will also not harm the students. Causes rebound damage. There is a dark red ball placed above the central impact point. The ball is flashing with violent energy. This is the most expensive part of the entire training machine, a small energy core. The energy formed by the students' attacks will be directly fed back to the small energy core to provide energy for the entire training machine. At the same time, the small energy core will also digitize the attack and reflect it on the surface. The minimum value is 1 and the maximum withstand value is 1000. there is an extremely huge amount of energy stored in the energy core. Once the damage received exceeds the tolerable value, it will explode. This is why such precious energy cores are placed in training machines for students to use if they wish. No one but students dared to touch it. If you are not careful, the whole school will fly into the sky. Yejing lined up with her classmates and walked quietly towards the back, silently thinking that she could not see or not, but before she took a few steps, someone pulled her collar up behind her. He waved his hand subconsciously, and then he felt something was wrong. He turned around and saw the old professor standing behind him with a dark face. Yejing shuddered all over, and a smile uglier than crying appeared on his face. "Professor, I didn't mean it." The old professor didn't listen to Yejing's explanation at all. When the iron rod in his hand was about to hit Yejing, a strange color suddenly flashed in his eyes. "Have you entered the country?" Yejing nodded hurriedly. Yeah, I worked hard last night, persevered, exhausted, and finally passed that level." The old professor had a dark line on his face. "What a mess, line up and fight, if you don't get 100, I will still beat you." He has been working at Gukhan Middle School for more than 20 years, teaching batches of students, whether they are geniuses or wastes. He has seen all kinds of people. If you don't pass today, it's okay, just beat them up, and if you don't pass tomorrow, beat them up again, and you will pass one day. Yejing sighed. "What's the big deal?" He walked to the back, where a few boys at the end of the class were gathered together, chattering about something. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 6. Want to be amazing? Want to be a loser? Want to attract the attention of all the girls in the class? A bottle of violent potion, you are guaranteed to be satisfied. The violent potion instantly improves physical fitness by more than 30%. You deserve it. In the center of the tail end, Wang Hao held a few blue bottles in his hands and excitedly shouted. "Wang Hao, is this thing you said really useful?" one of the classmates asked curiously. "I don't want to be a loser, I just want to pass the test." "The professor's stick is too painful," a classmate said with a sad face. Wang Hao patted his chest and said confidently, "Don't worry. The potions produced and sold by my pharmacy are free to refund if they don't pass. There are only 5 bottles, first come first served." Although Wang Hao's strength is weak, his family runs a pharmacy. He has been exposed to potions since he was a child. He has a talent for making medicine that is different from ordinary people, and this talent provides him with a lot of funds. He plays Star Wars and pays for Krypton gold, goes in and out of various entertainment venues to pick up girls, and buys high-level medicinal materials for experiments. All the funds needed are provided by the pharmaceutical industry. And the classmates are all his leaks. No, God. The students who were originally just interested, when they heard that there were only 5 bottles and a refund, they didn't hesitate and reached out directly. "Give me a bottle. I have been displeased with those geniuses for a long time, and I must surpass them today. I want one too. Whether I can avoid the old professor's iron rod depends on him. Leave a bottle for me." Wang Hao's face was full of joy. He raised the spirit stone card with one hand to collect money, and took out the violent potion from his arms with the other hand. After the tail of the crane dispersed, Yejing came over with a curious look on his face. "Wang Hao, how much is your violent potion per bottle?" He knew very well that the attack value of a newcomer like him who had just entered the country could never exceed 100. Of course, if the double attack is triggered, triple damage is definitely enough, but the problem is, there is no chance. 1 punch per person, what can I use to bet on that 10% chance? Wang Hao glanced at Yejing. 500 per bottle. Goodbye, goodbye. Yejing heard it and bowed and retreated. It was not worth it to buy a beating for the old professor with 500 spirit stones. Wait. Wait, Wang Hao pulled Yejing and said with a smile, I haven't finished yet. We are classmates. I can give you a discount. How about 400? I can't afford it. How much can you offer? Yejing thought for a while and tried, 40. Wang Hao took out a bottle of violent potion from his arms and stuffed it into Yejing's hand, deal. His principle is to make as much money as possible. Yejing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How many times did you make money? Selling it for 40, the cost must be lower. Selling it for 500 per bottle, it's really black. Yejing carefully put the violent potion into his pocket. He looked at such a profitable potion and couldn't help but feel moved. In addition to lottery, my passive furnace seems to have a synthesis. Do you want to buy some herbs tonight and try? Practice, practice, draw prizes, it's just one sentence. It's useless to play without money. Gukhan is not big, and Gukhan High School is not big either. There are only 4 classes in the whole school, with more than 200 students in total, and many of these more than 200 students are useless people who just want to get a degree. Just like Yejing before. There are more than a dozen students with extraordinary talents in the 4 classes, far beyond the average person, and they only have 2 in the 4 classes. One is Li Ke, the monitor of the 4th class, the son of the Lord of Lycan, who has practiced sword for more than 10 years, has excellent physique, and has no shortage of resources. He entered the country last year and has now reached the 3rd level of the human transformation realm. The other is Huayu, who entered the country last year. After awakening, she became a body of water and fire, and her demeanor is unparalleled. Now she is in the 3rd level of the human transformation realm. If her family was not poor and could not afford the resources for practice, she would probably have reached the 4th level now. There are 53 people in the whole class. Except for these 2 elite students, most of them are just wandering around in the 1st level. According to the values on the training machine, the most normal attack power of the 1st level is 100, the 2nd level is 150, and the 3rd level is about 200. But that is just the average value of the entire planet. In a small place like Gukhan, it is basically dragging the entire blue star behind. Every time the attack value is tested, Li Zheng and Huayu are always standing in the front, because they are the only 2 who are not afraid of the test and pass it. The other students are hiding behind, knowing that they can't avoid it at all, but they also want to see others get beaten first. Huayu knew that there would be a test today, so she wore a light blue sportswear that was convenient for stretching her legs and feet. Even the hair that was originally draped was straightened into a single ponytail. The girl was slender and had a heroic look. She faced the training machine with a serious expression. After a long breath, she mobilized the spiritual energy in her body. The aqua blue and fiery red spiritual energy gradually condensed on her right palm, and the faint fluctuations spread to the surroundings as the spiritual energy condensed. Ha! A few seconds later, a gleam of light flashed in Huayu's eyes. She shouted loudly, and her right palm, which was red and blue, slapped the training machine directly. After a muffled sound, Huayu stepped back a few steps and looked at the value displayed on the training machine. 295. Huayu frowned, with dissatisfaction in her eyes. Why hasn't it exceeded 300 yet? She herself knew that this value was far beyond the normal attack power of the 3rd level, but she was just not satisfied. Oh my god! Why is Huayu's value getting higher and higher? With this value, why do I feel that she can beat all of them in one go except the monitor? Tisk tisk tisk, she beat 295 without using any skills. Wouldn't it be even more amazing if she used them? Don't mess with her. The old professor showed his approval. Every time he improved, it meant that his practice never stopped. He was a promising talent. It would be great if other mud monkeys could do the same. Thinking of this, the old professor looked at the tail of the crane and sighed. Still not enough. The second one to come up was Li Ke. He was the strongest in the school, handsome, and his family was rich and powerful. Every time he made a little move, he would attract the attention of many girls, and in return, the boys would be jealous. Accompanied by the girls' discussions and the boys' curses, Li Ke walked to the front of the training machine with a calm face. He was not as troublesome as Huayu. He took out a Qingfeng longsword from the storage bracelet and waved it casually. The speed was extremely fast. The students only saw a flash of cold light, and then the value appeared. 313. There were bursts of exclamations in the training ground. There was no spiritual energy, no preparation, no sword skills, just a casual swing. This guy is handsome, strong, rich, and powerful. He was born at the peak and can still rise after the peak. What a joke. There is no comparison. Fortunately, there is only one ruthless guy in the class. He can't tell the difference. If there is a second one, it must be strangled in the cradle. Second. Yejing laughed secretly while listening to the boys' discussion. A group of noobs who may not even pass the 100 mark, how could they possibly be ruthless? Stop dreaming, and think about how to deal with the old professor. Li Ke was very swift and retreated after chopping. However, the old professor on the side was angry. How many times have I told you? It is forbidden to show weapons in the school, why don't you listen? Li Ke looked innocent and arrogantly played a sword flower, but I can't do anything except sword. The old professor yelled with a dark face, then you should put it away. For this kind of student who doesn't follow the school rules but has a background, he can only yell at him. The theory that a talented person will emerge under the stick does not apply to Li Ke. This week, I will update twice after signing the contract. The first volume has a faster pace. I hope you don't mind. Thank you for your support. Please collect it. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 7. After the two tough guys finished the test, the students in the back row also walked up one after another. 103. A girl's nervous expression suddenly relaxed after seeing the value exceeded 100, and she stepped to the left. 93. A boy stood on the right with a sad face. Waiting for him was the iron stick set meal of the old professor. Not long after, all the students in the big class finished the test, and it was also about to take the unified examination. The students had more or less improved. A group of people stood on the left, and only a few stood on the right. Now the remaining ones are the last ones in a few classes, and Yejing is also in this list. Zhenghua was the first person to buy the violent potion from Wang Hao. Since the third year of high school, he has tested the value 8 times, and he has never completed it from 50 to 100. Once. No. In other words, he has been beaten by the old professor 8 times. There is no shortage of spiritual stones in his family. Every time he was beaten to a bloody mess, he went home and drank the medicine and was as good as new the next day. But only the body is restored, the trauma of the soul and the pain cannot be restored at all. This time, his eyes were full of determination and his face was full of unyielding. He would definitely pass. Then he secretly drank the violent potion. In an instant, he felt full of strength all over his body. A sense of confidence arose spontaneously. He yelled at the training machine and punched it. 101. Passed. Zhenghua cried with joy. I finally don't have to be beaten. Yejing looked at Zhenghua, who was crying with joy, with a black face. He couldn't help complaining in his heart. He took drugs to pass the 100, and the violent potion increased by 30%. That is to say, without taking drugs, there was only about 70 numerical attacks. How did you enter the country? No matter how much Zhenghua improved, he only knew that he didn't have to be beaten this time. He jumped to the left and gave his brothers a look. It works. Before Zhenghua walked to the left, the old professor suddenly said, "Go to the right." Zhenghua looked confused, and forced a smile. "Old professor, I passed." The old professor sneered, "Did you take drugs? Do you think I'm blind? Potions like this that improve strength can't be hidden from people like him. He can see it at a glance. It's just that the students are not deep in the matter and dare to drink the medicine under his nose." Zhenghua's face froze, not only him, but also the remaining few tails, their faces were ashen. "It's over. It's exploded. If we can't drink the potion, what should we do?" They all stared at Wang Hao. The profiteer returned the goods. Yejing was also confused. "What should I do?" The whole army was wiped out. When it was Yejing's turn, he saw the tails surrounded Wang Hao with anger on their faces, and he could vaguely hear their conversation. "Can we bury someone behind the school? It's not the school that decides whether we can bury someone, it's us." "It's decided happily. Bury him for 2 hours after school." Yejing touched the useless rage potion in his pocket and sighed. "Can I participate?" He walked to the training machine and was in deep thought. "How can I skip the chance and directly deal triple damage?" It can also be said that what can leave a value of 100 on the training machine. Borrow a sword? He looked at Li Ke on the side, and then denied it. The two of them didn't have much communication and couldn't borrow it at all. Then he put his eyes on the old professor and said, "Professor, can you lend me the iron rod?" "Old professor, get lost." "Okay, I knew it." Yejing sighed and had to force it. Looking at the training machine, he murmured, "God bless, one punch doubles the blow." Trigger the sound of trust, lasting 30 seconds. Yejing's eyes lit up. "How could I forget it? It is impossible to hit twice with one punch, but there is still the voice of trust. Time is tight, only 30 seconds, he did not waste time, turned his head and said solemnly to the old professor, "Actually, I have learned a kind of boxing since I was a child, called King Fist. As long as I attack 9 times, the 10th time will definitely show unimaginable power. I want to try it." The old professor frowned and smiled coldly. It was agreed that each person would hit once, but you actually wanted to hit 10 times. "Are you dreaming?" Decisively refused. "Okay, I have never heard of King Fist, and I want to see it." Since Yejing only said it to the old professor, only the old professor was affected by the voice of trust, and other students who were not affected raised doubts. "What are you doing?" "Old professor, don't believe the name made up by Yejing. I just checked, there is no such boxing as King Fist." "Liar. Hit 10 times, if you are lucky, you may really pass, shameless Yejing." Although the old professor heard the students' doubts, he was unmoved. Yejing laughed secretly in his heart. He had passed this level. He aimed at the numerical meter on the training machine and punched 10 times in a row. 10 punches. He finished them in one breath. His wrist was hurt by the shock, but now was not the time to care about such a small problem. He focused on the numerical value. 70. 77. 69. After 10 punches, the multiplier was not triggered once. 10 numerical values, all below 100. Ha ha ha. I thought there was really a Kaioken. It's really impressive. Sure enough, Yejing is the worst in the class. He even hit 65. Strong. The whole class burst into laughter. After all this time, he didn't even hit 80 in 10 attacks. How could he think that quantitative change can lead to qualitative change? Yejing didn't care about his classmates' laughter. There were a few drops of cold sweat on his forehead. He turned to the old professor with a stiff neck and said carefully, "Actually, I am practicing Kaioken too. I need to hit it 20 times. Do you believe it? 30 seconds passed, and the sound of trust disappeared. The old professor had a blank expression and said nothing. He pointed at the training machine and then to the right. Either struggle or get off. Yejing looked powerless. He didn't know how many times he cursed in his heart. 10% chance. 10 attacks didn't trigger once. What the hell? This crappy passive skill, I will never practice it again. With resentment in his heart, he swung the last punch. 231. When he saw the number above, he was stunned. He was completely dumbfounded. His mind was blank and he stood there blankly. 231. 3 times the damage. Over. Not only him, but the whole class was also stunned. They were extremely shocked and stared at the number of more than 200. If it was Huayu or Li Ke who hit it, they might not have any expression. But this is Yejing whose highest number is only 80. How is this possible? Even Huayu, who was a little worried about Yejing, showed an expression of disbelief. How is this possible? You know, when she first entered the first level, the highest test number was only 120. This means that Yejing's attack exceeded her damage by twice that at that time. How is this possible? Is there really such a thing as Kaioken? Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 8. The old professor looked at the values on the training machine, his hands trembled, and the iron rod almost fell to the ground. He looked up and down at Yejing and asked curiously, "Where did you learn the King Fist? Why have I never heard of it?" Not only him, but even Huayu looked at Yejing with curiosity. Other students didn't understand Yejing, but she did. Yejing, who knew that she had poor talent since junior high school, never put her mind on cultivation. She played games or went out to play after school all day. She planned to graduate and enter the civil service, away from the cultivator industry. Such a salted fish, how could it suddenly turn over? Not only did he enter the realm, but he also learned to instantly increase the damage by 3 times. The King Fist that he had never heard of, this change is too fast, right? Yejing pondered for a while, raised his head slightly, looked into the distance, with a trace of memories in his eyes, and sighed. It was a windy and snowy night, and a lonely and helpless old man fell at the door of my house. Old professor, dot. Classmates, dot. Do you think people are idiots? If you don't want to say it, forget it. Don't make up lies. The old professor pointed to the right with a dark face. Yejing was surprised and said, "I passed." The old professor, "But you didn't pass the first time. The next one is just for you to try. Go to the right and wait. Revenge after the event." Yejing's face was dark. He regretted it after passing the voice of trust. How dark? Under the power, he walked to the right. It seems that he can't escape this beating today. When the tail ends on the right saw Yejing coming, they all rubbed their hands and surrounded Yejing tightly in an instant. Yejing, do you know what crime you have committed? After school, go to the back mountain with us to eat barbecue. Yejing was confused. What's wrong with me? At this time, he suddenly thought of something. When the class leader Li Ke was tested before, he attracted a lot of hatred. Then they couldn't afford to offend Li Ke, so they set their target on the next person who attracted attention. And just now, Yejing, who suddenly burst out with a majority value of 200, naturally became their target. Scumbag. Yejing sighed in his heart, this is probably how your life will end. At this time, Wang Hao came over and said with a face full of resentment, that's right. Yejing, you traitor. We agreed to be salted fish together, but you secretly turned over. We must bury you in the back mountain for 3 hours to relieve our hatred. As soon as Wang Hao finished speaking, someone patted his shoulder. He turned around and saw Zhenghua, who was the first to buy his medicine, looking at him with a smile. "You, buried for 5 hours." The farce was over, and the old professor gave each of them a 10-hit combo of the King of the World stick technique, and hit them on the buttocks. When Yejing came out of the infirmary, it was already afternoon. As they were about to take the unified examination, they had almost no courses. If it weren't for the old professor's strict supervision of them, few people would come to school. After all, Gukhan High School is not big, and there are no resources and equipment that can help practice. Generally, students will not come to school unless they have something to do. At this time, their class had already finished school, except for the scumbag gang who were still lying in the infirmary. Wang Hao's pharmacy should be called Hahai, right? Wang Hao's family runs a pharmacy, which is a medium-sized store in the lonely city. In addition to the main business of pharmacy, their pharmacy also sells pharmacy materials. Yejing now has only 100 spirit stones left, not to mention the lottery, even not enough to buy cultivation resources. At this time, there is no other source of income, so he can only put his hope on the second function of the passive furnace. Synthesis: put raw materials into the passive furnace, there is a 10% chance of synthesizing a finished product, LV1, 0/100. Is there only a 10% success rate at level 1? Yejing's mouth twitched. The price difference between the raw materials and the finished product must be at least 10 times to ensure a return on investment. Let alone profit. If the luck is a little worse, wouldn't it be a loss? No wonder Wang Hao can sell the violent potion he made for 500 or 40, ensuring the supply of raw materials while also ensuring profits. What a profiteer! Pharmaceuticals are so lucrative that it would be a shame not to enter the market and make some money. Yejing thought to himself that he had the synthesis in the passive furnace, so he didn't need pharmaceutical technology at all. He just had to throw the raw materials into the furnace. It was simple and convenient. Maybe this is not a passive furnace at all. It's better to call it a salted fish furnace. Yejing, who was walking out of the school while thinking, didn't notice that someone was waiting for him at the school gate. Yejing, right. A sudden voice interrupted Yejing's thoughts. He looked up and saw that the class monitor Li Ke was leaning against the wall at the school gate, lowering his head and looking at the sword in his hand. Yejing looked confused. Don't leave after school? Block me after class? It shouldn't be. How can the flag be triggered without communication? What do you want from me? He had a vague guess in his mind, a helpless guess. Li Ke wiped the blade of the black sword with both hands. He didn't look at Yejing at all, but kept staring at the sword in his hand. His tone was a bit careless. Can you tell me about the technique and move that instantly increases damage by 3 times? Sure enough. Yejing sighed secretly and said helplessly, there is no Kaioken at all, that's all made up by me. I know there is no Kaioken. Li Ke looked up at Yejing and said with a smile, Kaioken doesn't matter. What I want is the move that instantly increases the damage by 3 times. Those people were attracted by the name of Kaioken. When they thought that Kaioken was made up by you, they stopped asking. But, Kaioken is fake, but the effect is real 3 times the damage. Yejing's mouth twitched. It's really the most troublesome thing. There are still many people who understand. Kaioken is just a name. It doesn't matter what it is called, but triple damage. This is true. Everyone saw it. How to explain it? Yejing frowned, thinking about how to get out. This is not a move, not a skill, but just his unique golden finger. It is impossible to share it with anyone. Just when Yejing was silent, Li Ke, who was standing by, urged again, you don't have to think about how to answer, you just need to give it to me. Li Ke's tone was extremely tough, and there was a sense of course in the toughness. He was the strongest in Gukun and the only son of the Lord of Gukun. The sword he used was the best sword in Gukun, made of rare metal black gold, worth millions. The sword technique he practiced was Changtian sword technique, an advanced sword technique taught by Changtian Group, a large group on Blue Star. His storage bracelet has 100 cubic meters, while ordinary people only have 1 cubic meter. And he got these things very easily, and some of them were even delivered to him by others. So, in his eyes, the technique that could instantly increase the damage by 3 times was also his. Yejing was slightly stunned, and then his calm face also darkened, and he said in a cold and hard tone, "I can't hand it over, I'm on drugs." After that, he directly passed Li Ke and walked out of the school gate. "Hand it over to you? Shabai. Do you really think the whole world revolves around you? Go eat shit." Li Ke looked at Yejing, who walked away in confusion. "Isn't this how you ask for things? It should be right, right." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 9. This high pharmacy is in the south of the city, while their school is in the north of the city. It takes more than an hour to reach the destination by tram. Compared with some shops of group forces, Yejing still prefers small shops. Not only are they cheap, but they are also practical. The same long sword made of fine iron costs only 200 spirit stones in ordinary shops, but in group shops, after packaging and adding a name, the price can be tripled or quadrupled. He had also browsed the cultivation potion used to assist cultivation on the internet before. The civilian price was 100 spirit stones, while the Changtian Group pharmacy in Gukun, a bottle of the same cultivation potion, replaced with a crystal bottle, cost 300 spirit stones. The price of a broken bottle is equal to 2 bottles of medicine. Who can afford this? Yejing got off the tram and walked straight into the high pharmacy. A middle-aged man was lying on the counter, looking down at the book in his hand. He looked a bit like Wang Hao, so he should be Lao Wang. When Lao Wang noticed that a customer came in, he was slightly stunned, and then a gust of wind, and the book in his hand disappeared. Yejing, don't think you can read pornographic books in broad daylight without customers. Old Wang rubbed his hands, his bearded face full of smiles. "Hello, what do you need? Medicine or medicinal materials?" Yejing had thought before that the best-selling and easiest to sell medicine in the world should be the recovery potion. After all, whether it is fighting against aliens or going out of the city to hunt monsters, recovery potions are needed to improve safety and ensure life. Although I don't know what the formula is, the main function of the recovery potion is to treat injuries and restore blood. As long as you mainly choose this kind of medicinal materials, you can hand over the rest to the furnace. Yejing asked, "What are the prices of medicinal materials used to treat injuries and restore blood?" Old Wang's eyes lit up. Star spirit grass is 50 spirit stones per plant, and blood seepage is 30 spirit stones per plant. It can make advanced healing potions. As long as it is not a fatal injury, it can be instantly restored. Yejing's face was dark. "Tell me something cheaper." It costs 80 spirit stones to synthesize once, and the success rate must be considered. Wouldn't the total cost be thousands of spirit stones? Who can afford this? Besides, now he wants to upgrade the proficiency of synthesis, so he should choose the raw materials that are cheap and not at a loss. When Lao Wang heard that he wanted cheap ones, his attitude suddenly changed. He wilted and said weakly, "The cheapest ones are the medicinal materials before the Great Collapse, Kodano size and Astragalus, 10 spirit stones and 5 caddies, you can buy it if you want." After the Great Collapse, the spiritual energy invaded, and it was not only humans that were affected, but also plants, animals, and other creatures, including medicinal materials. Codonosize and astragalus were precious medicinal materials before, but in the era of spiritual energy, they were not even considered kimchi. However, this kind of medicinal material that no one uses is just right for Yejing. He didn't hesitate and bargained directly, Codonosize and astragalus, 5 spirit stones and 10 caddies. Sell it or not? Sell. As expected, he is Wang Hao's biological father. The price of medicinal materials is so black, and he sells them if you pay money, sells them at a high price if you don't bargain, and sells them at a low price if you bargain. It's a rip-off. He took out 10 spirit stones from the storage bracelet and took back 20 kilograms of Codonosize and astragalus. Whether he could make money depended on these things. When he returned home, his father was not at home. He did not think much about it. He went back to the house and poured 20 kilograms of Codonosize and astragalus on the ground, and then began to ponder. If you synthesize 1 kilogram at a time, you can only synthesize 10 times, which is equal to 1 bottle. If you synthesize half a tael at a time, you can synthesize 100 times, which is equal to 10 bottles. Do you still need to think about it? It must be half a tael. Although the effect of 1 kilogram of raw materials is definitely greater than that of half a tael of raw materials. But no effect is needed, only money is needed. He divided Codonosize and astragalus into 100 portions of 1 tael, and then put his consciousness on the passive furnace and turned on synthesis. When synthesis was turned on, the passive furnace changed a little. The originally dim furnace suddenly lit up, and a flame like nothingness burned in the furnace. It should be the built-in flame of the gold finger. It is said that this is originally a furnace. It is not surprising that it can refine things and have flames. However, when Yejing's eyes accidentally caught sight of the energy, he went berserk instantly. Energy, 100. Energy, 99. Energy, 98. I was wondering why synthesis didn't charge a fee, it turns out it's waiting here. Consuming a little energy per second is equivalent to 1 spirit stone per second, you are so black. Yejing was so angry that he was shaking all over. This broken thing is really a rip-off. It's even more rip-off than a certain company's mobile game. He didn't have time to complain or get angry. After all, the furnace flame was still burning. It wasn't the flame that was burning, it was the spirit stone. With his hands as fast as the wind and as powerful as lightning, Yejing picked up a potion and threw it into the furnace. He didn't need to care about the others. Buddha-style medicine refining, once a second. Synthesis failed. He didn't think much about it, this was all expected, and he threw another one without pausing. Synthesis failed. Synthesis failed. Recovery potion *1, proficiency add 1. Finally succeeded. Yejing was shocked. It took 13 ingredients to synthesize 1 bottle. The success rate was really low. Time ticked by, and it was not only time that passed, but also spirit stones and materials. Yejing didn't even look at the finished potion, and continued to throw materials into the passive furnace. Insufficient energy, do you want to continue to recharge? Recharge 100. Yejing spent money with tears in his eyes. There was nothing he could do. Now he had invested all his savings. If he failed, he would die. Synthesis failed. Recovery potion *1, proficiency add 1. Triggering double attack, recovery potion *3, proficiency add 3. When this message appeared in Yejing's mind, he was stunned. It turned out that synthesis could also trigger passive skills. Isn't this too abnormal? Now it's only 3 times and nothing can be seen, but what about after the double attack level is increased? 10 times? 100 times? Wouldn't that make a fortune? Thinking of this, his originally gloomy face suddenly became much better. He kept comforting himself in his heart to develop slowly and wait for the later stage. When the energy was exhausted, the raw materials were also exhausted. Yejing looked into the storage bracelet, and 15 bottles of recovery potions were lying quietly inside. Recovery potion, recover minor injuries and a small amount of blood. What a simple introduction. A total of 15 bottles of recovery potions, the raw materials are 10 spirit stones, not expensive, and can even be said to be very little. But using the passive furnace consume 200 energy points. The total cost of 15 bottles of recovery potion is 210 spirit stones, and each bottle costs 14 spirit stones. I just don't know how much it can be sold for. I should find a professional to ask. At this time, he thought of Wang Hao, the classmate who was carried to the back mountain after school. Please collect and comment, can you recommend and invest? Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 10. As a blue planet that was still a technological civilization 100 years ago, it naturally still retains some black technology. For example, the Xuanhuan brand smartphone that Yejing is using now is made of mithril, with precise internal hardware, ultra-long standby time of 10 years, built-in 9G network, and universal across the blue planet. The phone has a Super Q that has been operated by Tengfei Group for more than 100 years, and Yejing's class also has a chat group. This group was originally established by their first-year class teacher. After several rounds of turnover, it fell into the hands of the old professor. However, unless there is an important notice, the old professor will not pop up in this group. In fact, the purpose of establishing the class group at the beginning was to learn from each other, discuss cultivation, and exchange experiences. However, driven by a few unserious students, over time, it became a chat group, chatting, fighting pictures, boys pulling people to play games, girls talking about fashion, and no one could be found to discuss cultivation for a few days or a week. Yejing originally just wanted to privately chat with Wang Hao to ask about the potion, but he didn't expect that when he opened the class group, it was crazy ding ding ding, and the chat messages were full of 99+. What happened? Yejing opened the chat group with a curious look on his face. Before he could read the chat history, a picture appeared in his sight. He burst into laughter. In the photo, there was a small hillside covered with green grass, several teenagers with their heads down and smirking, and a head under their feet. Wang Hao was buried. Yejing burst into laughter. In the photo, Wang Hao was buried in the soil, with only his head left outside. He tilted his head, with a look of despair on his face. There was a bunch of green grass on his head, and the soil around his head was wet and covered with unknown liquid. Is that some excremental liquid? Yejing thought, and then he shuddered immediately. It's impossible, it's not that bad. It should be a violent potion. After all, they were cheated by the potion. Yes, it shouldn't be some excremental liquid. In addition to Wang Hao, the photo also has several lines of red fonts. Wearing a green hat and stepping on the ground, Wang Hao, a profiteer, should be punished with justice. Classmate A, finally someone has punished this bastard. I don't know how many spirit stones he has earned. Classmate B, last time Wang Hao sold me 2 bottles of cultivation potion, just like clear water, I spent 200 spirit stones to buy 2 bottles of water. Classmate C, he calls himself a pharmacist, but he only knows how to sell fake and inferior products, either less medicinal materials or no effect, it's a waste. Classmates are all scams. Kill him. Classmate D, he took the money he cheated from us to pretend in Warframe, and took the money he cheated from us to pick up girls in the bar. This is what Wang Hao did. It's hard to relieve the hatred in my heart if I don't kill him. How many people have he offended? Yejing sighed. The whole group was scolding Wang Hao and asking for sanctions, no one spoke for him, and some people even launched a spirit stone red envelope. So, don't offend too many people. Yejing shook his head slightly and privately chatted with Zhenghua, the leader of the sanctions against Wang Hao. Yejing, Zhenghua, open the video call to Wang Hao, I have something to ask him. Zhenghua, it's not convenient. Come to the back of the school and talk to him face to face. Yejing smiled slightly, thinking I was stupid. If I hadn't run away quickly today, it wouldn't just be Wang Hao buried in the ground. You still want me to fall into the trap, you're dreaming. Yejing, it's too troublesome, I'll just say a few words to him. Zhenghua, no. Come over and get together with us. Didn't you also get a bottle of violent potion? Come over and step on his head, how comfortable it is. I'm afraid I'll be stepped on too if I go over. Yejing, forget it, I'll look for him tomorrow. It seems that I can't contact Wang Hao today. He will probably be very autistic after he finishes there. This should be the black history of his life. While talking, Zhenghua swiped more than a dozen pictures of Wang Hao's death in the group, and also tagged everyone, and sent a few spiritual stone red envelopes. Yejing's hand speed was naturally amazing. He kept clicking without missing a single red envelope. It seems that they got a lot of spirit stones from Wang Hao. Yejing's eyes lit up. In an instant, his spirit stone card increased by more than 100 spirit stones. He was in a good mood. He just wanted to hang out, but he didn't expect to gain something. Thank you, Wang Hao, I remember all the suffering you have endured. Just when the group was still laughing, a message was posted, and the chat group was instantly quiet. Old professor, what are you talking about? Let Wang Hao out. Before the old professor could say anything else, the group was flooded with messages in the next second. Wang Hao, capture an old professor alive, and launch the Pokeball. Wang Hao, capture an old professor alive, and launch the Pokeball. Classmate A, capture an old professor alive, and launch the Pokeball. Classmate B, capture an old professor alive, and launch the Pokeball. Dozens of messages were posted back and forth, and even the good students in the class followed suit. It's so strange. Since the old professor took over their class from the previous head teacher, this is the first time that there is no important notice in the group. What else can I say? The capture is on. Yejing looked at the capture scrolling on the screen, and a cold sweat fell on his face. They are all courting death. But why is it so cool to watch? Could it be that the essence of human beings is really a repeater? Don't be impulsive, don't be impulsive, these people are courting death. Yejing suppressed his desire to follow Yaishao, but he couldn't hold back his fingers. Yejing, capture an old professor alive, launch the Pokeball. Old professor, sneer, screenshot in 1 second, everyone line up 5 sticks. The next second, classmate A withdrew a message. Classmate B withdrew a message. Zhenghua withdrew a message. Huayu withdrew a message. Yejing, dot. What a quick hand. He withdrew it immediately, and 1 second later, there were only 7 messages left in the entire chat group from Wang Hao himself. Is he so stubborn? Yejing was shocked, actually stealing the old professor? But then he remembered that Wang Hao was still buried in the soil, so it was estimated that these messages should have been sent by Zhenghua. Tragedy. Old professor, blood-dripping knife, Wang Hao, come to the infirmary with me tomorrow. Wang Hao said that he wanted to cry but had no tears. I was wronged. When the group calmed down, the old professor's business was also posted. Old professor, this year's unified examination requirements for each college have been communicated, and there will also be a unified examination for Yuexing New City this year. All students must arrive at school at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and no lateness is allowed. A row of people swiped their hands and then the class group fell silent. The unified examination qualifications for each college are different. Strong colleges have high requirements, while weak colleges have low requirements. This is normal. The process of entering colleges in the third year of high school is actually very complicated. First, you must meet the requirements of the college you want to take the unified examination. Then pass the unified examination test in your own city. Finally, take the unified examination of the college you applied for according to your ranking. If you pass, you will be a member of the college, but you can only choose to take the exam again next year, or you can choose to join a group or a large force of a guild. All of these depend on personal choice and strength.